Jim and Sheila, extended version. Good morning, class. How's everybody? I know it's Friday, it's the weekend, you want to get out of here, but you have a midterm coming up, and then we're starting clinicals, and so I wanted to talk a little bit more about couples therapy and how to think about the relationships that we have before couples come in to our counseling sessions. As you know, these sessions can become quite heated. People are angry with each other. Their feelings have been hurt. They can become very defensive, and communication becomes difficult at best. Sometimes couples are not even willing to talk to each other. One person wants to be there, the other person doesn't. And so you really need to think about what these couples are like, or what the potential is. What can you predict about couples therapy before you even get started? That way, during your pre-session, you can ask appropriate questions and find out exactly what you think is going on with this couple, and that can lead the type of therapy techniques that you might use. So, if you think about personality types, Carl Jung was a counselor who we call his therapy technique Jungian. Some people pronounce it Jung. But anyway, he's very well known, almost as well known as somebody like Freud in the field of psychology and in analysis of what goes on inside our emotions, inside our heads, when we are having emotional problems. So in order to talk about couples therapy more effectively, let's think of an example from my past. When I was very first getting started with counseling, I remember one of my first couples, and their names, I'm going to change their names so that they can't be identified in any way. Confidentiality is so important. We can talk about situations, but we don't want anybody to be able to identify the people who were our clients in those situations. So confidentiality is something that you always want to consider in all of your interactions, both in class, really, and because we're practicing for our career, and outside of class in clinic, where you're practicing with real people. So Jim and Sheila are the couple I want to talk about, and they knew they were different. You know how some people, there's a book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and it talks about how men and women are internally different in the way they approach thought processes, in their feelings, in the things they talk about, and the way they talk. It's a really interesting book. You should read it. It's a quick read, an easy read, but it's full of thoughtful comparisons between the male and female temperament and how they approach communication. Well, Jim and Sheila knew they were different. They had problems, and they were worried that they were going to have to get a divorce, but they were able to salvage their marriage after they were shown how all of us fall into one of 4 basic personality classifications. So with that knowledge, Jim and Sheila learned to be more flexible with their differences and accept each other's differences better. The theory that, again, was utilized here was established by Carl Jung, and he wrote that in communication, people are divided into 4 distinctive behavioral categories. Obviously, people who belong to the same category tend to wear the same kind of clothes, they tend to have the same kind of friends, they see the world with the same perspective, and so on. But the important point of the 4 categories is, again, how they affect communication style. If our communication styles are similar, you can predict that we will think alike, we will enjoy the same kinds of activities, and we will express ideas in the same way. But if our styles are different, we may have a difficult time fully understanding each other. There are 4 basic communicating styles, and they are, and you need to be able to understand all 4 of these and the typical ways that people fit into these categories. So we have the thinker, the feeler, the intuitor, and the sensor. Again, you should be taking notes. Those are the thinker, the feeler, the intuitor, and the sensor. The thinker is organized, structured, always searches for facts. There's a really old television show called Dragnet, and the 2 police officers on that show were typical thinkers. They were just after the facts. They didn't want to know what you thought, what you felt. One of the famous quotes from that show is, "Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts." So the thinker seldom makes quick and prepared decisions, but once having made a decision, he will stick with it. The thinker has a conservative look, an orderly life, and an accurate checkbook. On the negative side, he can get too engrossed in the details and be rigid and boring. Even the way that these 2 police officers communicated was boring. They didn't have very much intonation or much emotion that showed in their speech patterns. Only about 1 in every 4 Americans is in this category, so that's 25%. They include engineers, computer specialists, lawyers, accountants, and teachers. The second classification is called the feeler. The feeler is emotional. They wear their heart on their shirt sleeve. They're known for their love of people, adventure, and involvement. For this group, the biggest problem is boredom. They're always trying new things. They like that adrenaline rush. Feelers tend to enjoy pleasing themselves. They like bright styles and bright colors, but for persons with other communication styles, the feeler can be a real nuisance. They're unpredictable, they're spontaneous with a "I don't care, free spirit" attitude. Some experts estimate that 25% of our population are feelers. They turn up in fields like acting, sales, writing, and nursing. The third class is the intuitor. They're imaginative and they enjoy mind-testing games. So, they might be people that you find playing a lot of role-playing games or interactive games. The technical details of life often bore them, or they're just forgotten. People of other styles are really easily irritated by the intuitor because she gets impatient with anyone who doesn't see the immediate value of her ideas. She's usually rigid, uncompromising, and impractical. there's not many intuitors, only about 1 person in 10. They are inventors, scientists, and researchers. The last group that Jung identified is the sensor. Okay, now the sensor is easy to spot. They, interestingly enough, make up about 40% of the American population. The sensor enjoys the thrill of the chase plus a fast payoff, so they want instant gratification. I can think of a lot of people in our class that are like that. Many business executives in America are censors, and so are many of our best athletes. The censor tends to give and demand total loyalty. If she fails, she tends to blame others for not being as aggressive as she is. So again, they're very competitive. Well, you can imagine that if people who are predominantly in one of these categories are with somebody who is in another one, there's going to be clashes. Most people are a combination of some or all of these during certain times, but usually we are predominantly one or the other. Some interesting people are half one and half the other. So depending on which communication styles their partner has, that could work out pretty well. Well, Jim was a thinker, and Sheila was a feeler. So you can predict some of the problems that might have occurred. And in fact, after I'm done lecturing, I want you to get into groups and identify some of the problems that you could see might come up during a therapy session with Jim and Sheila. So again, Jim, thinker, Sheila, feeler. After they understood how each other communicated and dealt with issues, they were obviously better able to handle conflicts that arose in their marriage. And I'm really happy to say that they did not get a divorce. Okay, everybody, do you have any questions? Okay, if they come up during your discussion of what you think might occur in the therapy session, let me know. Otherwise, go ahead and get in your groups, and then we'll get back together after about half an hour. We'll get back together and discuss what you found.